Welcome to this this week's BTO talk. Too many words in one sentence on generative AI, digital transformation, prompting, and so much more. My name is Mike Lalf, calling from Lisbon, and we work with clients pretty much around the world, especially in Europe, Middle East, and Asia, on those topics. And I'm here together with one of my co-founding partners, Rob. Over to you.
Yes, good to see you, Michael. Great to connect again. Rob, based here in London, working on digital transformation programs, a lot of work now in banking and in the oil and gas business. Now, Michael, I'd like to ask you to kick off, as usual, with some tech updates for us, and then we'll move into a fast-moving topic, which raises some interesting questions around prompting. But before we start, just a reminder, we have the QR code above my head there. Please do jump on to get an early copy of the book that we will talk about in a moment. And with that, Michael, let's hear your tech news.
Thank you, Rob. Yeah, again, there is so much happening. I could talk about Opus 4.8 of Anthropic, which came out again better. I've been using that quite a bit. It's just kind of incredible, what is possible now. But I want to mention actually another development in our trainings. What we do, we'll also talk about kind of the foundation models and the big players, which are out there. And the big ones are Anthropic, Google with Gemini, and of course, OpenAI. And these are the three big ones in the race. There's a few or quite a few others. One player which wasn't really up there yet is Microsoft. So Microsoft's strategy was a different one, was actually licensing both OpenAI from the beginning and then Anthropic a couple of months back. Now they're coming up with their own model. So they're also going the model path. And it seems because it runs also on their infrastructure, it seems this is really, and it's called My Code One Flash and My Thinking. So My is MAI. This is a reasoning model. So they are in the game now, of course, to be less dependent on the other players. And of course, because they are one of the big players. So it will be interesting to see how they compete against. There's a lot of competition in the quality of the models, but not only the models, also what we call the whole harness. And the harness really becomes the essence. It's kind of how the model operates and works, which makes the difference in combination with the model itself. So that's from a tech perspective. Again, if you want to go deeper, please reach out to us. We're always here to have a conversation, to help your teams and work through those aspects. Yeah. So with that, I think we want to discuss one interesting topic, Rob, kind of, prompting, and I prompt now is still important, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's right. So we go back to when the LLMs came out first and we were figuring out, well, how do we get the best answer? And of course, the answer is based on how precise your questioning is. The analogy we used at the beginning was, imagine you're talking to a 5-year-old and asking the 5-year-old some very specific questions and giving some very clear context. And if you don't do that, of course, you're getting a very generic answer. And that is not going to set you apart from your colleagues and from your competitors. And it's also not going to be very helpful for the large language model to come up with something truly relevant and valuable in a way that a more precise prompt could be. And the prompts then developed. We saw very detailed prompts reaching out to other intelligence that you either had on your local drive or that you'd already prompted. And so we could see these prompts building on prompts, and the intelligence and the quality of the response is getting higher and higher. But is prompting the only answer, or is there another way to do this? Maybe a better way to do this, looking at agents and creating agents that can do some of the work for you, which somewhat diminishes the importance and the value of the prompt and prompting skills themselves. Now, there's a delicate balance here between what is important, what's working already, and another way of doing this, which of course requires a new skill set. And I want to ask you, Michael, to give us some examples of where prompting remains relevant and what this balance between the old prompting and a different way, an agent-based way of developing the answers, plays out. So can you give us a couple of examples and build on what I've just suggested there?
Yeah, thank you very much, Rob, for this overview, introduction, and thoughts on the topic. I think this is one of the more dynamic topics in the whole generative AI field, and we see that in the trainings where we still cover prompting, and from experience, prompting is still important and relevant. Yeah, so it's not like kind of you can ignore that completely. The models, especially because of their reasoning function, and that means they are looping. Yeah, they're looping back. They actually are a lot better. So they ask you for some additional context. Yeah, so they might ask you, so clarify that so that they can provide a good answer. But on the other side, there are examples. I recently had one where I just wanted to check that, to sum up the minutes of a workshop, and because there were letters in there as well, I just put it into one of the models, and interestingly, it came back with the wrong result. And only after challenging it, it actually got it right, which doesn't help me at all, of course. Yeah, so this is interesting. So you asked for example. So I think kind of from the day-to-day practice, if you are doing one-offs, prompting is still super relevant. Yeah, the more precise, the better the structure, the more context, the better the results you are getting. So I think that has actually not changed and won't change, because kind of the LLM can give you only a generic one, yeah, and needs information and precision. So that's for the one-offs. Everything which is not one-off, this is where the shift actually happens now. Yeah, so with both ChatGPT and Claude, you have now a lot of the context, and context really becomes critical in this environment, which means from a pure prompting structure, you have here a role, context, task. The context is there already. Yeah, so there is kind of previous conversations, there's documents, and more. And that, of course, makes it a lot easier to come up with relevant information. So that's an example. On the other hand, when we look at both AI workflows and real AI applications, so complex AI applications, prompting is fundamentally important still. Yeah, so it's actually super important to have very specific instructions to address all exceptions, edge cases, and things like that. Yeah, so one example I use for our newsletters. We use a hybrid approach, which means we input relevant information, thoughts, ideas, like also this live. And then the AI workflow creates both the newsletter in a version to be reviewed and an image as well. Yeah, so that's all automated. And here the prompts are actually quite extensive and long. Yeah, so we have very complex long prompts. We have even staged prompts with a couple of prompts after kind of multiple steps. Yeah, things like that. So there's a lot more complexity. So I hope that kind of sheds some light onto the whole aspect and how it's shifting. Any thoughts or ideas, Rob, around that?
Yes, so I think the fundamental to all of us, the key difference here is if this is a one-off, then there's no replacement from what you've been doing already, developing your prompts. If it's a repeat task to save you having to repeat each time, well, then that's where the agent can come in. But underneath that, we still need very clear explanations about what tasks the agents need to do, in what sequence, and building out that workflow, which replaces the need to do this manually. And I think as time goes on, as the agents become better understood and you're more comfortable with using them, then we can be building out multiple agents, having them working independently or updating those agents with live feeds as you've got live, there could be market rates changing, it could be other variables that you're updating through API. So it runs itself, and you can be extracting more value and get more time back because you don't need to be doing these processes manually. And I think it will be very useful. If you've got any questions, please do get in touch. Let us know what those use cases are, and we can give you examples of shortcuts you can be taking to be saving time and build more efficiency into your workflows. Looking ahead, Michael, do you see anything fundamentally changing in the next 6 months from that trend, or are we sort of set on path and there's no replacement for learning how to do the prompting and iterating as you go?
That's a great question. I would say there is a new dynamic now, and that was triggered by OpenClaw, which is the autonomous agent, which I think. And there's a lot similar things coming up now. One of the most discussed ones is the Hermes agent from the Naus group, an open research project. I'm experimenting with that at the moment. Microsoft came up with an approach how to actually develop agents, and this is a really fundamentally different shift, and this plays perfectly into what we are talking about in the hybrid leadership, in the book, which you can scan here to be early in for the book launch. So really recommend that, because this is exactly what we're talking about. Kind of if you have things or entities or whatever you want to call it, which are somehow autonomous, and there's different levels. We'll talk about that in the book. Actually, I spent a couple of hours this week on rewriting some of the chapters and aspects. Is the levels of autonomy is, for example, in there, and this is a complete shift, and this is a massive challenge for leaders to consider what that means, that you have these things now that do some work. And again, it doesn't have to be that the agent does everything kind of fully autonomous. It's even kind of on a regular schedule, again, scanning kind of the stock price, for example, or material price or anything like that, or changes in the website or whatever, I mean, for all the functions, and then do things with that. And the doing something with it is actually the interesting part. So I do see a massive shift happening at the moment. All companies need to consider how they do that. That has implications on the whole leadership structure. It shifts also where the responsibilities and accountabilities are in an organization. Also, the capabilities are shifting. So we will see massive shift over the next 12 to 18 plus months coming forward.
Yeah, I think that's a very good summary. Thanks for that, Michael. And let's remember that there are massive efficiencies here in your traditional core business activities, but looking outside this, looking at innovation, scanning the market, looking at trends, looking at other potential ways of increasing value in other areas. We can be using agents also to be scanning opportunities there. So it's not just your traditional business as usual. Be looking at new business opportunities, new product ideas, new product innovation as well. So many opportunities lying ahead. But yes, we need to help you to develop a structured way of progressing. And of course, it's not the tech, it's the leadership and understanding how to apply the tech, which will be the key differentiator in the weeks and months ahead. So thank you for your time today. Next week, we'll look forward to getting Marcus back on the call. He's missing in action today, but safe and sound, and we will see you next time. In the meantime, please jump on the QR code to get early access to the book, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time. And goodbye for now, Michael.
Thank you. See you. Bye. No, if that wasn't